Hello everyone, I'm going to give you an update on what's kept me busy and not posted videos for a while. It's all because of this beast. This is RVer Frank in the Yerf Doghouse. We have a little bit of wind today, but I want to give an update on some of the activities that I've been working on, which has kept me away from posting videos. So I find that I have more time to do mods on this thing than I do driving it, although I have some video of some rides that I've been on. But for the most part, when I'm not driving, I'm adding stuff, creature comforts, to the Can Am X3 XRC rock crawler. And I got this rock crawler because it really provides the ultimate in the ability to cross terrain and recovery options, being that it has its own winch. And I'll do a walk around on some of the features and modifications that I've made. This is a forward-looking camera I installed. I have one in the rear I'll show, as well as a display inside. When the stock suspension is set up at the time of delivery, this ring here is up here, and it really gives it a much lower stance, probably 9 to 10 inches of clearance. I guess standard height for this, the nominal, would be 14 inches. And so you just adjust these rings down, reset the crossover rings per the manual. It's a fairly straightforward process. You need to jack it up all the way with the wheels off the ground, and I'll talk more about that in the rear. Shock adjustments. So some of the changes that I made, or additions, is the stock mirrors with that rear fender flare. It cuts the vision off pretty much with that mirror. So I added almost what I call a Ram Dodge truck mirror, the way they stand off. I added this spacer, it's 2.5 inches, and it gives me the visibility, you can see there, between the tank and the fender flare. I installed the light bar and a couple warning lights. I'll talk more about those. I mounted a shovel up there, and the tubs up top of the roof rack that I installed contain some tools, supplies that I carry per my checklist, and then there's space in one of those tubs for additional items. If we were to go camping, I could even throw a sleeping bag and a gear bag on top of there. And of course I have the Max tracks for recovery. Mounted those. These straps are tied to each one so you can pull it out if they get buried when you actually use them. I installed these 1.3 gallon tanks, 2 of them, saddle tanks. So with 10 gallons on board plus almost 3 gallons, gives me 13 gallons, or around 260 miles travel on the fuel, depending on, of course, the ride conditions. This is where I carry my fire extinguisher. Although most carry it on a bar somewhere, I really don't have the real estate for installing that fire extinguisher anyplace else. This is a bag where I keep my recovery gear. This is just an extra toolbox. I think I carry a flashlight in there. I added these locks. Provides a much more secure container. I insulated it so it's like an ice chest within an ice chest. Room for storage of anything that I want to carry. Now, this is the air intake for both the air to the carburetor and air to the vent tubes to the clutch. This is a vent that's out. It's an exhaust vent for the clutch. So you want to keep this as cool as possible in how you drive. But that air being sucked into here to provide cooling and air into the air filter canister to the carburetor, all that air is collected and sucked in through various vents. I'm sure it's designed in a way that it sucks in as least dust, but this back here just gets totally dusty. The vacuum created back here makes it get very dirty, and of course for the carburetor you have a lot of dirt going into the carburetor. So I did a modification. This is a rain boot that I created because I cut the top of the box to run this air conditioning duct in there. It's 3-inch. There's an adjustable 3-inch elbow that goes right into the air intake within the box. And because I cut into the top of this, I would be concerned about rain, water, anything getting in to that intake. So I fashioned this boot which will allow runoff where I cut that. Now that duct comes up, routed underneath, and the ram intake is right here, right there, right there. And so when driving, you're picking up much cleaner air, so it's going to provide a much cleaner intake. This stays fairly clean, depending on how close you fall in behind someone else creating dust. You get a pretty clean air coming in here, and this will create sort of a ram induction. Now I suppose I could get some sort of a oil gauze and put in here as a pre-filter, but I'm going to run it the way it is right now. Haven't taken it out yet. Cleaner air means that you're going to get cleaner filtration. Less demand on that filter. I use a stock air filter with a outerwear, which is a very fine mesh net sleeve that goes over that dry filter. I also have a twin air. Twin air means that's the first layer, then this goes over it. It's an oil system. There's the structure that goes inside that air filter sleeve. And that works really good. The problem is it's kind of messy, and if you're going to be out wanting to keep your filter clean, it's quite a process to go through, dipping that filter into the cleaner You got to have the tubs to do that. Wring it out, let it dry. Then you got to oil it, which is this is a cleaner I use. This is a twin air oil, liquid power. It's really tacky oil. It's not your typical automotive oil. It really has a tackiness to it. And it evaporates out so that you're not really getting oil contamination as you would get with a normal oil filter. It evaporates off and leaves a sticky residue on the foam which collects the dust and doesn't really produce any oil going into the intake, which might affect the airflow sensor for the fuel injection. So I'm running the dry filter and the outerwear, and coupled with this intake here, it's going to give me a much longer duration with less contaminant in the air filter. So that was a little mod that I did. What else? For the most part, that takes care of everything back here. This is a rugged radio, FM radio. The other antenna is a CB, 40 channel Midland CB radio. On the passenger side here, I installed these gas struts. It keeps the door open so you can get in and out without worrying about this door coming in on you. You see all of the insulation for heat, sound, and actually dust control on this bulkhead, this rear bulkhead here. And so that seals off the whole area. I also put this plumbing foam around the edge of this plastic window to kind of tighten the seal up around there to keep the dust from flowing in. Now the battery is behind this seat. I installed a secondary battery with a isolator, wiring up a fuse box, some remote jumper, battery posts. So I have a separate battery for the primary ignition and a secondary battery for all my accessories. In the event I need to jump the primary battery, I have a couple remote battery posts here. Otherwise, to get to the battery, you got to pull the whole seat out. I have a trickle charger pre-wired. I just plug that in. If I want to charge the primary battery, I've got a toggle switch here. I switch it to the left. If I want to charge the accessory battery, I toggle switch this to the right. I've sealed the cab wherever there's any light that came in. I made this boot, a dust boot that goes all the way around. It's velcroed in, creates a dust barrier. I have a USB port here, and this is where I hook up my cell phone, keep it charged. That's the handset for the rugged radio. The seat here has a 2-inch riser on it, and it's adjusted for Kathy, so it's pretty much sized to her fit. This is the display for the cameras, fore and aft. The accessory battery, which controls all of these add-ons, is connected through the main bus, power bus, cabled up to a 8-station fuse block in this dash here. And so everything is wired and grounded in this area to the main power bar. So I'm not running off of the auxiliary power accessory plug, except for the lighted antenna that was done by the dealer, and the camera is powered off of the X3 wiring system through the auxiliary plug underneath there. Everything else is on its separate battery, which includes, and there's a switch to here, power switch. Turn that on, and there's a duplex plug there, power plug. Gives me my voltage, and I've got an additional plug if I need to run an air compressor or anything off that plug. I installed these fans, 2 fans, which gives a strong airflow to blow dust out of your face, or just to give you a cooler temperature differential. It does get warm in here, although there are vents that, if you adjust, can get you airflow, but then with airflow comes dust. Which I'm not opposed to dust, but if you can eliminate it, then you want to do that. Okay, so I have a map light. This is a interior red, so I can see my shifting at night. It's dark. There's no other light in here. Of course, there's a clear feature. And this is a warning light, and I have a couple of these that I would put out on the road as flashers. This is a bag that has all of my medical supplies, so on and so forth, per my checklist. This is my radio. I hang it here. When I actually have it on, it's suspended so I'm not tangled up with the seatbelt with all the wires. Okay, so we're going to start it up in a second, but I've got a couple switches here. They're in the off position now. These control those emergency lights that are out there. So I will start it up. So I have a line here for my GoPro to video my drives. I'll turn the main switch on for accessories. I have that light bar. This is for my whip antenna, lighted whip antenna. I put in here a PA system, and it has a police siren, horn, a high-low, and two whales sounds. Very loud. And the PA is equally as loud. And I find it handy when other than the stock horn that comes with the street legal kit. That puts out much more higher decibel. I think it's like 130 decibels, and I have that mounted right in there. And it's kind of fun to run the police siren. And here I have my cell phone, and I have maps, GPS maps, that I can access here without any cell service. I've got the Midland 40 channel CB here. That's the rugged radio. This is a charge line for my cell phone. There's another USB port there. There's a USB port there. This here has a voltage, and I have a voltage. I have a power plug down here, and it gives me a voltage meter there, and then my CB plugged in. I got a winch control, remote winch control. Plugs in here. The internal winch control is right here. And I'll turn these switches on. And that gives me these emergency lights. There's 17 options on how these flash in random. And those are in the rear. So the idea with those is if you are coming up to somebody you want to pass, if we get their attention, they might even pull over, especially if I've got the siren going. But if I'm pulled off to the side or I'm in the road and want to alert those coming from the rear or in front, be able to see this, whereas the standard lights may not give a sense of warning or emergency. So I got the boot on this side, and it's sealed wherever there's a crevice or an opening, because that's the skid plate on the bottom underneath the frame, and it's intended to be really an open caged buggy, but given I've got the enclosures, it's more like a Jeep as opposed to just an open side-by-side. What I did with these, when they're stock, this is how they would fold down. I didn't like that sticking up, so what I did was I cut it and sewed in this Velcro so that this window goes down all the way. Eventually, I think what I'll do to get rid of this altogether, without having to remove this frame, because there's a lot of facets to the enclosure to actually enclose it. But I'm thinking that I'm going to Velcro along here so I can take that plastic completely out of there during the summer. So I'm not having to worry about that plastic there. It does scratch it a little, but I'm not going to worry about that. Again, I got this shock strut on this door. I've got 2-inch wheel spacers, obviously on all 4 corners. This is a 64-inch wide XRC turbo. They make an XRC Turbo R that's 72 inches wide with 170 plus horsepower. This says 120 horsepower. It's jacked up a little higher right now because I just got through making a fine adjustment on the crossover rings. And so it's a little higher here, and the stance is a little pulled in. I haven't normalized it yet. I use a Harbor Freight 3-ton heavy-duty Pittsburgh jack, floor jack. It's a rapid pump. And with those blocks, I can raise this wheels off the ground. That's a weight distribution over the floor. This thing weighs about 1,800 pounds, in that range. As far as fuel, I made this carrier. I have 4 5-gallon DOT approved fuel cans. These are not approved in California. They have a quick flow like this, and it just flows out really fast. This is a feature to keep it from going down. Or if I don't want to do that, I can do the fuel transfer with this switch. It takes about 5 minutes, maybe a minute a gallon. There's 5 gallons in each can. So I'll take those with me. I have an additional 20 gallons of fuel. That's basically 2 tank loads of the stock tank size. Or I have fuel here when I need to fill up, because I can drive this right to where I want to go riding. It's street legal. My approach to cleanup is a quick high pressure wash followed with a spray down of turtle wax car soap wax, and that gives me a good clean waxed finish. Wipe it down. Then might sound ridiculous, you put Pledge on. I use the Great Value Walmart brand. Spray that on there. And just wipe it right in. Obviously, it's going to give you the protection that you would want. It's not greasy. And what's great about this is, much like for your furniture in your home, you're looking for a formula to keep dust away. So the dust does not stick. Dirt does not stick. If it does, there'll be a fine layer of dust, but it'll come off really easy. This is really slick. So that pretty much is it for the Yerf Dog. You can see the layout of the Yerf Dog house. I'm repairing an antenna, a whip. The way I'm mounted there, it puts sort of a strain here, but I've got only so much clearance coming through there. I got to keep that whip down. And here's a combination lock, so these don't walk off. I've got some video of some trail rides. I've got about 300 miles on this only. 200 miles is a break-in. But now I've got everything dialed in. I'll be going out here the next day or so. I'm just about run out of accessorizing this thing anymore. So, anyway, thanks for sticking to the end of this video. Take care.